Sometimes I'll be carrying something from my wife and she'll ask if I need a hand. I'll tell her, no, I'm at my best under load. It's kind of a joke, but kind of not. There's something about being under load, carrying a burden, that makes me feel good, makes me feel secure. Maybe it's because when I'm under load that I know I have a purpose or a destination. You give a man a purpose and destination and he may just set this world on fire. My destination on this trip was to bear my burden 140 miles from Seward to Ohiopyle and then back to Seward. My purpose, well, was to spend 10 days in the woods, to hook up with some old friends, to meet some new ones, to think, to wander, to pray, to separate myself from the rushing world, to cross over roads less traveled and ones more heavily used, to reach deep into the mountain and draw from it its life-giving water, to prepare my meals in rustic kitchens, and then to eat in dining halls lined with oaks, maples, and birches, to sit near comfy fires. It was a very inviting purpose. At some point overnight, the rains came. Don't you just love this sound? Well, I don't know where and I don't. But I know that we'll be lovers again. The sun did its best to dry things out, but the night's rain had made a muddy mess of the hallway that stretched from my pantry to my kitchen where I had breakfast. Today's hike would only be about 10 miles to the Route 30 shelter. It's not a far walk for a man who's best under load. So I picked up my burden and set off. The weather never seemed to make up its mind. I walked through rain, cold, sunshine, and then rain again. The sky constantly changed colors. The rain, however, gave me the opportunity to try out my new homemade rain kilt. That was cool. You know those love songs break your heart. You know those love songs break your heart. 'Cause oh darling, my heart's on fire. Oh darling, my heart's on fire. When I reached the shelter area, I made my way to the privy and used some wipes to clean myself up a bit. Walking out here really helps increase one's appreciation for the simple things in life, like being clean or putting on clean clothes. I have a new fondness for the feel of fresh socks being pulled over tired feet. The air was rapidly chilling, and so I started a small fire to keep warm. As darkness swept over my tiny campsite, I retired to my hammock for what would become the worst night I would ever have between two trees. It dropped to 22 degrees with the wind that night. That's 20 degrees colder than the rating of my equipment. In vain I struggled to stay warm. Ice had formed in my water bottle overnight. It was that cold. After breaking camp, I made my way to the Route 30 parking area where flecks of snow danced around me. There I met the LHX hikers who were getting on the trail and had invited me to join them. Some of these hikers were old friends. Others needed introductions. There was Scott, Brian, Jen, Rachel, and my buddy Adam. Rachel had brought Harley along, who would become everyone's constant friend and encourager for this trip. We made our way to the turnpike shelter, where we huddled around a fire. The group stayed together in one of the lean-tos, while I retired once again to my hammock. My good friend Brian had organized the LHX hike to get this group together to connect and then make a generous donation to a nonprofit organization called GearForward.org. GearForward collects backpacking equipment and gets it in the hands of the next generation of hikers. It's an awesome cause.
Well, I fell into the ring of fire. I fell into burning ring of fire. Went down, 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 and the flames, they went higher, and it burns, burns. This burning ring of fire.
We set out on our shortest day, a simple stroll to the Route 31 shelters.
The taste of love is sweet when hearts breakers meet. Well, I fell for you like a child. Oh, and the fire went wild.
One of the things about spending time with others who are also under load is you have a tendency to get distracted about your own burden. It becomes a group effort. Your own burden just doesn't seem as heavy anymore.
It's burning ring of fire. Ooh,
Morning crept in silently and gently shook us from our slumber. We soon made ourselves ready for the day. As we continued southward, we walked into an area that I call the sanctuary. Its beauty and quietness invite the worshiper in to find a seat in its pew and contemplate things greater than oneself. Even Harley offered his approval. We detoured off the trail for a mid-morning snack at a roadside deli. The warm food lifted our spirits even higher and gave us the needed boost to return to the trail. A huge surprise awaited us at the 653 shelters. David and 8 months pregnant Marissa hiked in to greet us with a warm fire, bratwurst, and yogurt parfaits. It was a spectacular night. And suddenly, I was alone again. Due to some injuries, the LHX hikers decided to get off the trail and get a shuttle into Hiapile. I chose to push on and hike the 18 miles into town, where we would hook up for the night. Without a doubt, this is the most difficult section of the LHT. I had done it before, so I wasn't too concerned. However, the temperature would climb into the lower 80s, making this far more demanding than what I was prepared for. The walk started out easy enough, but soon I was shedding layers of clothing and looking for water along the way. I guess that's the way it goes. Just when you think you've got it, something comes along to put you to the test, to see how committed you are to finishing your trek, to see how good you really are under load.
Tell me now, baby, is he good to you? Can he do to you the things that I do? 'Cause I can take you higher. I'm on fire.
All right, I'm on the backside of Heart Attack Hill between milepost 6 and 5, and it is brutal. I'm telling you, it's brutal up here today. High temperatures were supposed to be near 75. It feels every bit of that. There's no shade under the canopy. There's no canopy, so there's no shade here, and the sun is just blistering right now. And this is one long, brutal climb, and I'm feeling every inch of it right now. Just sweating and breathing hard. It doesn't seem like it wants to end. Man, this is definitely a test. Finally, however, I reached the southernmost end of the trail and made my way into town. My friends were waiting for me at Falls City Pub, where I sat, rested, and drank. I was so overheated that I was nauseous. It took a long time before I could even eat something.
All alone, I got a bad desire.
Brian had reserved a yurt for everyone at the High Pile campground and made sure I had a shuttle to get there. First order of business for me, however, was a shower. I hadn't seen one in over 6 days and was looking forward to this moment with great anticipation.
To the things that I do, 'cause I can take you higher. Sometimes it's
After cleaning up, I sat down to sort through my things and restock my food supply. But frankly, my heart wasn't in it, and I was still half sick from the heat exhaustion. Also, hanging over me was my plan to return to the trail and hike back over those same unforgiving, heartless 18 miles in what was now being predicted to even be a hotter day. Honestly, I was thinking about ending my hike, about calling it quits. The next morning, Brian shuttled me back to the trail. I wasn't feeling too sure of myself and decided that it would be okay if I didn't walk all 18 miles, even if it meant that I couldn't finish my trip. And so I began. My pack was filled again with a fresh supply of food, feeling much heavier than the day before. Thankfully, as I began my climb to the ridgetop, the sun was not yet at its zenith. I tried taking advantage of the cool morning to make this wicked ascent. And slowly the miles fell behind me. I rested frequently and drank often, taking my time in the beating sun. Eventually, I made it. I'd walked all 18 miles. I was soaked in sweat, exhausted, and overheated. But I had reached my goal. The hardest 36 miles of this trip are now behind me. Maybe I am best under load. I lay in my hammock looking up at an uncertain sky. It wasn't friendly and it wasn't exactly threatening. I think it was waiting for me to make the first move. So I did. I got up and had breakfast. I was feeling strong again, ready to take on the day. I set out north, while my progress was silently cheered by a great cloud of witnesses. The day's highlight occurred after dinner when Ed and Natalie hiked into the shelter area with some blizzards. Ice cream never tasted so good. And then the rains came again. A hot cup of coffee got my day going. I would be hiking about 14 miles from the Route 31 shelters to the Route 30 shelters. I stopped for lunch at the same spot that my friends and I had stopped just a few days ago. Today, I eat in silence. Then some trail magic. Georgette and her daughter Kaylee hiked in to see me. They are both strong hikers who thru-hiked the trail last year and were going to do it again this year. Their gift to me was some fresh fruit and sweets. Their visit really lifted my spirits. And then there was the surprise of the day. My wife braved the cold and rain to hike into the shelter to see me. I was totally taken back. We chatted and caught up on everything before she had to go. It was more than just a fire that warmed me on this evening as I sat alone.
My heart's on fire. Oh, darling, my heart's on.
What turned out to be my final day began in fog, cold, and rain.
Oh, darling, my heart's on fire for you.
My plan was to hike to the 271 shelters. However, I got an early start, and by lunchtime I was already there.
Well, I don't know where and I don't know when, but I know it will be lovers.
I stood along the trail and ate lunch in the cold. There was no place to sit, and, well, frankly, I didn't feel like stopping. So I pressed on. I decided to hike to the Decker Avenue shelters and spend the night there. Joanne, who lives not far from that section and who had been following my hike, walked down to make a fire for me and join me for a meal. But as the rain was beginning to lift, I decided to continue walking. It was only 5 miles from the end of the trail, and I was eager to get home.
You know those love songs break your heart.
I shared my plans with her. She sent me off with a hug, and I continued walking. It turned out to be a 24-mile day for me. Normally that would have worn me out. But this time, I knew I was going home, and I was fueled with excitement. There's a tradition on the trail of slapping the mile markers with your stick as you walk by. Of all that I tapped, this one brought the greatest satisfaction. This is kind of hard to explain, but before I left, I just needed a moment. When you feel you're at your best under load, well, hey, this is Dane from featherprop.com, and I just want to say thank you for stopping by my channel to watch this, my latest video, Best Under Load. This was a really epic trip for me, one of the longest trips that I've ever made, the longest trip that I've ever made, both in terms of mileage and days in the woods. So it took a lot of planning, a lot of just scheduling this out, a lot of thought behind it, and so it's one that I won't forget. So I thank you for watching the video for one of my favorite hikes. Thank you very much. A couple shout outs that I really feel that I want to make on this. First goes to Mia Ray. Mia, wrote to her, asked if I could use some of her music for for the soundtrack, and she gave me permission to do that. Please check her channel out. She is a beautiful, talented artist who does some amazing work. Matter of fact, I have the links below to each of the 3 songs that I used, and so you can actually click on these links and watch her perform the song that was the soundtrack for this video. Please do that. And if you leave her a comment, just tell her that Dane sent you, so she'll know that some people from my channel came over to see her channel. So thank you, Mia, very much. Your music is awesome, and I wish you the best of everything in your music career. Next shout out goes to Brian from HBF Outdoors. Brian was probably my single biggest sponsor on this trip. HBF Outdoors stepped up and really helped me out a lot. Brian provided the shuttle off the trail in Ohiopyle, a shuttle back to the trail the next morning. He provided a yurt, a place to stay, and really just took care of me along the trail the best that he could. And not only did he hike with me 3 of those days, but he also kind of kept tabs on me, checked on my status, provided weather updates and so on and so forth to me. So I really appreciate Brian and HBF Outdoors for what they did. Please check out them below. I have a link. The LHX Hikers, LHX 2018 was a hike that Brian put together, invited me to hike with them. It was great hiking with these people. The LHX Hikers actually had their own sponsors. So there's some organizations stepped up to help and sponsor them. I can't remember all of them. There is Sawyer and Pure and Eyes. They stepped up to support the hike. And one of the biggest sponsors that really just impressed me so much was Sasquatch Fuels. Sasquatch Fuels donated meals, dehydrated meals to the hikers. They were great tasting. They're extremely light. I was very impressed with them, and I really love the meals. No more Mountain House for me. I'm going to Sasquatch Fuels. Please check them out. Got a link below as well. Thank you, Sasquatch Fuels, for following along our hike. Now, some behind the scenes as far as the video goes. I always like to include this for those interested. Main camera was my Google Pixel, which is currently obtaining video right now. I'm talking into it. Also, secondary camera would have been my GoPro Hero 5. The second time I've had it out, and this sort of a Gorilla Pod type of tripod is what I use primarily, and it worked very well. So I put this on the linear mode for the most part, which eliminated the fisheye, and so that was just helpful to have. So those 2 were my cameras. Also, this year again, as I've been taking for a couple years in a row, I took my Landpart gimbal. This is a motorized or electronic stabilizer that helps stabilize the video as you're shooting it. Some of the real smooth, buttery-like shots that you saw on this video were shot using this handheld gimbal. The battery is just awesome. It lasted all 10 days without a recharge. So this has been an amazing thing. It's a little heavy to carry on a backpacking trip, but it's well worth it as far as I'm concerned. I did use battery banks. I had 2 of these battery banks back up just to recharge all my devices, including my GPS watch. These helped out a lot to make that trip. So that's sort of some of the background scene in case you're interested in some of the videoing that I shot. Now, one of the questions that I get asked a lot is about wildlife on the trail. Didn't see much this year. I saw a few chipmunks, birds, a couple squirrels, no deer, no bear, no rattlesnakes. I saw one like 4.5-foot black snake at one time, but its performance was so poor that it didn't make it into the final edit of my video. Really not a whole lot of wildlife. A lot of cool, a lot of rain. I saw everything. I saw snow. I saw heat. It was almost 90 degrees the day 7 going back onto the trail. Just incredible. The weather changes. A lot of rain this year and things like that. So, but that all made it epic, and that was awesome. So thank you once again for watching the video. And if you like my style, my video style, if you like what I do and you want to see more like this, then do me a favor and share this video on your social media platform. Just click share, send it out there, and say, hey, I like this, you might like it too. And that would be my way of knowing that you like this video. Also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and that's another way of showing me you want to see more of what I'm doing. So I appreciate that, and any comments that you put below, I will certainly respond to it the best I can, so as quickly as I can. So thank you once again for watching, for taking the time to comment, and one of these days I hope to see you out on the trail.